Today we're going to be tying a wool head on a streamer. I've already got the body of the streamer tied. It's going to be a Sculpin pattern. It's a zonker wing lashed down to a dub body with a marabou overwing and a red fish fuzz throat. The head's going to be done in 3 separate sections, the first being the largest. So we'll begin by stroking out a rather large clump of wool. Just stroke the fibers to remove any of the fuzz or loose ends that are trapped within, and then clip off as close to the hide as you possibly can, and repeat that cleaning process to the butt ends of the clump. Now, to put this on the shank of the hook, you basically just slide the clump of wool over the shank so that the shank is in the center of the clump, and lash down in a similar manner to spinning deer hair. Just a couple loose wraps and then pull tight to cinch down on the fiber. And then to lock it in place, work the thread to the front of the clump and secure it to the shank. Proceed then to pack it tightly into place against the wraps of thread that would have come off the body of the streamer, and tie back almost until you've reached the original tie-in point to really lock the fibers down. The wool is properly packed in place when the majority of the fibers are pointed up or backwards, and you have a nice clump of thread that will serve as the base point to pack the second clump against. So repeat this process again, but this clump will be slightly smaller. Straighten out the fibers on the hide and comb out any of the loose fuzz to the tip and butt section. And to make it a little bit easier, you can trim the tips off at this point. Because in this fly we're not going to be keeping the tips, but some flies, if you wanted to do like a wool head muddler or something like that, you may want the collar. So again, a couple wraps through the center, work the thread forward, pack in place, and lash to the shank of the hook and work the thread back to lock it in place. Again, build a bulge of thread for the base for the third clump. Making sure everything's trapped and secured. And then repeat the process for the third and final time. This will be the smallest clump of the 3. And just try to eyeball enough to finish and take up any excess room left on the shank. So again, this one, trim the tips off of, clean the fuzz out. And in the same manner, just slide it so the shank's in the center. And lash down. Make sure you don't get any of the fibers trapped down more than once. And just finish up the fly by packing all the wool together and building a neat thread head just behind the eye, as well as locking down that third clump. So at this point we've finished tying in the wool. We can whip finish and then move to the trimming step. Just make sure you pull all the fibers back out of the way. I find this easiest done with the whip finishing tool, as if you were to do it by hand, it's hard to manage the fibers and get the thread in the proper spot, that you're not getting extra wool trapped in your whip finish. Don't apply any head cement at this point, because you'll end up just having too much little bits of wool and things stuck into it. So again, just rough it out ahead at first, and then continue to trim until the desired shape is achieved. Go to the high speed so we get through this a little faster.
But you know it ain't right. There's someone else controlling me. Death in the air, strapped in the electric chair. This can't be happening to me. Who made you God to say, I'll take your life from you? Flash before my eyes. Now it's time to die.
So now we've finished trimming the fly. It's complete. We've tied a fly that's going to hold a lot of presence in the water. That wool head's going to push and move a lot of water and really animate the rest of the body, and hold tiny air bubbles and things like that to really give a lifelike appearance. Finished up with some felt tip pen and epoxy on some three-dimensional eyes. Make sure you work the epoxy into the wool well so that it doesn't let go of the eye. A few different patterns of wool head sculpins. This completes tying a wool headed streamer.